Hi again, everybody. I'm Ross Cavett in the Cobb TV studios with Chairman Mike Boyce in our first chat for the month of February.
Hard
The year
to
is
believe.
moving right along, isn't it?
Hard to believe.
And you're just off a plane from New York where you were there with folks with the Cumberland CID. What was going on?
Well, I went up with Malika Rivers, who's the CEO of the Cumberland CID. And first of all, she's going to be leaving here in a couple weeks, and that's we're really going to miss her. I really have a very high regard for Malika and what she's done over there in her 22 years. As we know, the Cumberland CID was the very first one in Georgia, and they set the model for the rest of the states. And certainly a large part of that success goes to what Malika's done with the board and the business owners in that CID. So, but as you know, we have one of the projects in conjunction with the managed lanes that I'm now being told will be done sometime and open for business this summer, maybe September at the latest, is that because of the economic development and growth that's going on in the Cumberland CID, driven by not just the Braves and the Battery, but other development that they planned on over the years, that there was never a part of the plan to have a ramp that goes into the Cumberland CID coming south. So for the last couple of years, the Cumberland CID has been working with various departments, the state, us. We're going to make, for this $45 million project, to build a ramp that goes into the Cumberland CID to feed traffic off the managed lanes right into a development that the state has had a part in developing with their money, of course, through our ARC, and also by the $800 million, $900 million investment in this managed lanes. So I was up in Washington touching base with the senators and congressmen to let them know that we're very close to completing acquiring all the funding for that project, and just letting them know that we're trying to identify the last $6 million in this and asking their support in that. And I was very pleased by a couple things. First of all, how well informed all the senators or their staffs were, and the congressmen and their staffs, about this project. We went to the offices of Senators Isaacson and Perdue, and I got to talk to Senator Isaacson briefly yesterday, and he's in really great health and as usual, sharp as a tack. And then we stopped off at Congressman Scott's office, who was really in tune with this project, and also had some very good questions about the VA clinic that is planned to be opened up on the Dallas Highway. And then we stopped in the offices of Karen Handel, Congressman Loudermilk. In that case, his office was seen by Malika on Tuesday afternoon before I got there. And I stopped by the National Park Service because the Cumberland CID includes a lot of Park Service land, and there's some programs involving bike share there. And then we stopped by the Executive Office building to talk about a White House office that coordinates all domestic policy. So it was a full day, and I was very encouraged by what I heard there, and I'm cautiously optimistic that this final, as we call it, we get the balls in the red zone, now we've got to get it across the goal line. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to find the funding to finish the phase 2 of this project. Phase 1 is going on right now, which is expanding, widening that part of the managed lane to give access into the Cumberland CID area. And phase 2 is the actual ramp that will go into the area.
Are we looking at any sort of timetable or deadline for that?
No, obviously the sooner the better. But again, there's a lot of moving parts right now, and you saw the president at his State of the Union address Tuesday night talked about a $1.5 trillion infrastructure improvements that he's going to ask Congress to support. And we're certainly, by the nature of the fact that we've all been working this issue, it fits right into, I think, the president's plan to address infrastructure needs of this country.
When you finished up your first year in office as chairman, and look back, how important are the CIDs in the county to what goes on here? And how surprised were you to see how important they are?
Well, the two things that really caught my attention, first of all, they're really a well-oiled machine. Both there's 3 of them actually in the county. There's the Cumberland CID, there's the Town Center CID, then there's the Gateway CID, which is strictly within the Marietta boundaries, and then we have this kind of amorphous relationship called the South Cobb Development Authority, which is it taxes itself, so it's not a CID, but it runs in the same principle. And first of all, the 3 CIDs themselves. Well, look at what they've accomplished. The Cumberland CID speaks for itself. The Gateway CID under Mayor Tumlin The Atlanta United is down there, the practice field, the IKEA store that's going to go in there, the HD Supply, the headquarters that's going there. So that's that $70 million investment by the citizens of Marietta is really paying off handsomely for the city. And then the Town Center CID is really critical because the growth there, probably more so than other parts of the county, has been so quick and rapid that traffic is a big issue there. And the traffic issues, while the county can address some of them, it's really nice to have a partner in the Town Center CID that helps us identify specific projects so that we do use SPLOST dollars down there, plus money they've raised, self-raised by themselves, we're actually using money where it should be wisely spent. The second thing is that there's no question about it. The economic development in that part and around those three CIDs has been exponential, and their quality programs going in down there, bringing lots of jobs. And if there's any one downside is that it's gone so quickly and done so well that we haven't been able to keep up the infrastructure, primarily traffic and traffic management programs to address it. But that's a bad problem to have, because that means jobs, that means places where people can go to buy and shop and eat. And I'd rather have that problem than having no business at all.
Well, last week when we were here, we were talking about your trip down to the legislature to talk with them about the OLOST, a 1 cent sales tax for law enforcement, and where do we stand on that?
Okay, well, we went down there, and I was very grateful to see that just about the whole delegation was there. I think the one member that wasn't there had to, had a family, not emergency, but there was a friend of his that had died. He appropriately and rightly so was at the funeral for his friends and his family. They listened to us, but I think the problem we always had with the OLOST is that, first of all, the name, what does the O stand for? The second thing is that there was this perception that we were raising $130 million to fill a $30 million hole. And of course, the real whole purpose of the OLOST was to specifically address an issue that I've seen in my first year in office and spoken of frequently, is that why does the fire department and its associated services get to have its own fenced off money while the rest of public safety, meaning police, 911, EMA, and the medical examiner, they have to always fight for money against the other services in the county. So we were trying to find a mechanism that by law we could use to mirror what we do with the fire fund, because the Constitution no longer allows me to set up a separate police public safety fund like we did for the fire fund. But again, as in all issues involving money, unless you have a clear, concise soundbite that the public can bite onto, they right away just see that as just as a slush fund. And I commend Commissioner Weatherford for taking the effort to get this together. I supported it because, as anything else, to me it was nothing more than putting this issue in front of the voters as a referendum. But it was communicated in a way that I had no control over, that we were simply going to raise taxes, which was not true. There was no way we were going to raise this tax without going to referendum. And secondly, that again, as I mentioned earlier, that we were trying to address a smaller problem with more revenue. So I've been told informally that the state delegation would probably not support this proposal. And the proposal, as we know, was simply to allow us to ask the Director of Elections to put that initiative on the ballot in November. But we couldn't do that without permission from the delegation. So what happens is basically it's going to come back to us, and we're going to have to address our budget issues, as I've been saying for the last year, if not quite about a year. This is the cost of doing business. The mechanism we have for doing that, which is the most clear mechanism, is called the millage rate. This is what it costs us for a five-star county. This is what the bill is for a five-star county. And our message over the next 6 months is to show you that we've done everything we possibly can to create, by budgetary means, the most physically conservative and cost-efficient government that we have. But having said that, this is the true cost of maintaining the service that you've been accustomed to. This is what gives us the quality of life in the county. and this is what the millage rate is going to have to be. And as I've been telling you and everybody else, we're going to take that show on the road here, probably a little later than I wanted to. Certainly no earlier than March, more likely April time frame. But we're going to come out there, and I'm going to lead this discussion about these are the options we have, and I want to hear from you.
And when we've been in some of these forums already, we've heard from a lot of people who say, my taxes have already gone up.
Right.
And they say the tax digest has gone
Correct.
up, 6% increase.
Right.
That must mean you're getting in more money.
Well, you would think so, and I wish life was that simple. But the reality is that let's say that the tax digest this year goes up 6%. There is no direct proportion of increase in county revenues, and that's because your property, your residential property, is not taxed against the full assessed value of your property. Every year, I believe, or every 3 years, I think is the minimum. I could be wrong about that, but there's certainly a time schedule in there. The tax assessor in this county takes a look at your house and gives it a proper assessment. And more than likely now, because you live in Cobb County, because of the economic success we have here, your assessment's going to go up. But even if your assessment goes up 6%, your tax is not going to go up 6% because of the homeowner's exemption and the floating exemption. So as we've been saying now for a number of months, the whole county is under that system. So the only way that this tax assessment is going to equal the revenue generation is if I get all brand new houses in this county, and that amount equals an increase of 6% in the tax digest. But that's impossible, because there's no way we're going to build 200,000 new houses in Cobb County, or whatever it takes to equal 6% increase in the tax digest. The reality is that the residential homeowners in Cobb County, they get this incredible tax break called the floating exemption, and that's what you're taxed against. What I'm hearing from is that the homeowners are seeing their taxes go up every year, and it's being communicated that if the tax digest goes up X%, then so are your taxes. That's just simply not true. The only time your taxes go up a proportionate amount that equals to that is against the fire fund, against the school bond, and against the parks bond. During my town halls last summer, the issues were never about those parts of the tax bill that were fully assessed. It was only against the homeowners part of it. And there we have to do a better job of letting them know that you get the best break that you could possibly get in Cobb County with that floating exemption. And I ask people that when they take a look at their tax bill to see in fact what they pay, and it does not reflect the new assessment of their houses as far as taxes go. And
neither you and I are math teachers, but I hear an argument also all the time. One of the big things that puts demands on the county is that more people are moving here. That puts more demands on what we do.
Right.
But those new residents don't necessarily pay for themselves by adding to the tax digest.
No, as a matter of fact, it's well known that you derive a better benefit by taxing a commercial property than taxing a residential one. The taxes to pay for the services for residential do not meet what it requires for the county to support that residential property, whereas for a commercial property, in fact, does that. And the bottom line is that just because you get more people doesn't necessarily mean you need to hire more people as a county employee. What we need to do is make sure that we use all the new tools that are out there, software and other things, so that instead of having 10,000 people to do accounting services, we may in fact be able to do it with the same amount, but we have the upfront cost of buying the new technology and software that does that. And I just remind everybody that 10 years ago, we had about 5,400 people that worked in the county government across all departments, and now we have 5,000. So we, in fact, even though the county's gotten bigger, the county staff has gotten smaller. So that just goes to show you that we really are a very cost-effective, cost-efficient government that generates savings based on the practices that we do here.
Well, those are some of the issues that when you do go on the road will be taken out to the voters.
Right.
And if you stay tuned to all of our social media outlets, Cobb TV and everything else we've got, you can stay in tune to when those town halls will happen. And in the meantime, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Talk with the Chairman here on Cobb TV. In the meantime, have a good one.
Thanks, Ross.